let's start it out then with Porter Martone. You see a realistic ceiling as a star-level winger. I don't think anyone who's listened to this show before today is surprised.
I think
by
that is the industry consensus.
Yeah, not just you,
of
but
his upside is star level, above point per game, winger who's 6'3" and plays a physical game. Everybody wants a guy like that on their team. Yes, I think that is realistically his best case scenario, is that he is, maybe not quite as annoying, but still annoying Matthew Tkachuk.
And not only does he play a little bit of a power forward game, he's got the hands and the passing ability, the playmaking ability that he could easily be a, power play distributor, also can get into the front, tip pucks. Like, he's versatile. He doesn't just do one thing. I think that's why he went 6th in the draft. It's why everyone had him ranked well within the top 10, if not the top 5. And you have the floor. I think the floor is the more interesting conversation, because there isn't anyone who's like, oh, Porter Martone, don't see it. Like, it's not the Jett Luchanko pick, Yeah, maybe you preferred Hagens, but if you dislike this pick so much, calm down, Yeah. Like, yes, they need a center. They also just need good players. But the floor, solid third-line winger, it does feel like not only does this guy have star potential, the bust potential is very low.
Yes, and I think this goes back to the point I was making with Scott Wheeler, and we'll get into this with the other guys, but generally speaking, Scott is going to be more excited about guys with the high-end ceiling versus the guys who maybe don't have as high of a ceiling but have a higher floor.
Yeah.
Now, Martone is a guy everybody likes, but one of the reasons why everybody likes him is because you're like, okay, realistically, he could be a star winger. That is a awesome ceiling. Even if everything breaks wrong and he never improves his pace, he still plays too slow, the finishing ability never translates over to the NHL level, there is still going to be a place on any NHL team's third line for a solid enough skating, big winger with the kind of passing ability and vision that he has. I cannot see a world where a guy with his physical tools, and given how well he thinks the game, is anything less than a decent enough third line wing. That is what makes a true blue chip prospect. Is best case scenario is he's a star.
Sure.
Worst case scenario is he's decent.
Yeah, that scene, like, it doesn't feel like there's a world in which Jett Luchanko is Ryan Poehling.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And we'll get to him in a second. It doesn't feel as if that's the floor for Porter Martone.
No.
And that's exciting. It's exciting that this guy, like, who could make the team as soon as a few weeks from now, like, also whenever he does make it, he will have a role somewhere, probably in your top 9. Like, be on a power play unit, even if it's not power play 1. Because we talk about those plausible outcomes when you talk about thinking of things in terms of percentages.
Right.
Yeah, you want everyone to hit their ceiling. But as I said earlier, like, as we've learned with prospects, they often don't. In fact, the best possible outcome is rare. You want a guy you need to take swings. We've talked about it time and time again. But you also just need dudes to play. And at the very least, he's going to play.
Yeah. And that's what's so exciting about Porter Martone. But there's no real reason to debate Porter Martone.
No.
It's like, okay, well, do you think, maybe there are some people who look at him and are like, well, I don't necessarily see star upside, but you can hear the argument from someone who does, and even if you don't necessarily buy it, you're like, okay, I see where you're coming from. That is a reasonable stance to have. That tends to be how I view these prospect debates. Is like, it's less whether I 100% agree and more like, okay, you're providing enough evidence where I can say, even if that's not my evaluation, like, yeah, I could see a world where you're right, which brings us to Jett Luchanko. Like, I don't necessarily see a guy with 1C potential, but if you told me that, like, him being in your top 6 as a top 6 center, probably a 2C, best case scenario, but as a guy who, like, could be a 1C if you give him great wingers, yeah, I think there is a case that a guy with his hockey IQ, with his skating ability, which is legitimately plus, and given the details of his game as good as they are, especially away from the puck, but even with the puck too, to an extent, especially in the defensive and neutral zones, that guy could be a top 6 center on an NHL team, yeah, I can see it. Now, it's not as exciting to someone like Scott, who looks at his production and is like, all right, there's nothing in his production that tells me he has 1C potential, and also doesn't flash the super high-end puck skills that you tend to see in guys that are first-liners. I can see why someone like Scott would be like, yeah, for 54th seems reasonable for a guy like that. But I do believe that if everything breaks right with Luchanko, he could be in a top 6 of an NHL team.
And like in this world where now, yes, listen, maybe Zegras works out, maybe Nesbitt, whoever, but like in this world that I'm envisioning right now until they get lucky, it is very much 3-2Cs. Like that's kind of what you're hoping to be going with.
Right.
If Martone, and who knows, could be, we just had this conversation, and Michkov hit their ceiling, okay, I see a world where, yeah, is Luchanko the ideal guy in terms of matching what they do? No. But he's a nice complementary, these two are just going nuts in the offensive zone. And here he is. Yeah, man, he's leading the breakout. He is making sure we don't turn the puck over in the neutral zone. He's using his speed to go forward and back. Like, I see his tools as complementary if the two wingers are awesome, as we are hoping they are.
Right. And the other thing, too, if this whole get a bunch of second-line centers for now thing works out, you have centers are very valuable. And it gives you the ammunition where if a Jack Eichel becomes available, you can be like, well, here's Jett Luchanko in a first-round pick. You already know he's a good player. Yeah, he might not be as good as the superstar center that you're being forced to trade because he doesn't like your doctors. But, hey, this guy we have is pretty good. So it gives you the ability to potentially be in the market if that clear-cut 1C does become available. But the big thing for Luchanko, and again, this goes back to my evaluation of Scott Wheeler's general philosophy on ranking prospects. The big thing that's exciting about Jett Luchanko is the floor. And the floor is like, even if nothing else comes together for Jett Luchanko, I don't see a world where he's not a solid enough NHL center in the bottom half of your lineup. And the reason why I believe that is because he already showed it at age 18.
And like 18 and a month.
Yeah.
Or 18 and 18.2, Like, think of John Tortorella what you will. I don't think he's putting a freshly turned 18-year-old in the NHL just to entertain himself. Like, let me see if I can do something crazy today. Like, he saw enough in this guy to be like, I don't know, I want to see a little more. Like, even if it was just that, like, let me see if we get a little more. Let me just get another little look at him and see if, okay, it didn't quite work.
And he also hated Sean Couturier.
And, well, yeah, he did hate Sean Couturier. That's absolutely true. Certainly. But just, like, I am willing to take his belief that I think this guy at 18 can hold his own in this league, or at least is worth seeing if he can for a few games, to mean that at 21, we'll have a player. What exactly that player is, I don't know, because I don't know how much I believe in his actual ceiling, but I think he's going to be something. And you can always use that sort of speed.
I'm not even going with John Tortorella's evaluation. I'm going with my own evaluation. Like, I am fully confident that had they kept Jett Luchanko in the NHL the entire season rather than sending him back to juniors, a decision that, I'll be honest, I agreed with. But had they kept him in the NHL the whole year, I think he probably would have finished with Ryan Poehling-esque statistics. And Ryan Poehling is a pretty solid player. He's not great. He's not like a star by any means, but he's a solid enough player. And if Ryan Poehling is already Jett Luchanko's floor, that is exciting in the sense that you already know at age 18 going on 19, you have a good player on your hands. That's the enticing part about Jett Luchanko as a prospect, not necessarily the sky-high ceiling, but the fact that even if he doesn't get any better, he's still going to be a fast 25 to 30 point guy who sticks down the middle. And that's exciting, and I don't think that should be brushed aside just because that's not like, well, he's not a star, so he doesn't matter. Like, nah, those guys are still pretty valuable. They can even get you guys like Trevor Zegras in a trade.
I was just, another team just decided, Poehling in a second? Oh, yeah, here, have Trevor Zegras.
Yeah.
Now, he fell out of favor and all that, but, like, still a decent, I can't call him prospect, but like
Still shows that
has a high ceiling.
Shows that a guy with the floor of Ryan Poehling is going to have value around the league, even if he is nothing more than his floor.
Yeah.
And most likely, he's going to get better than what he was when he was 18 in a day.
Yeah.